Okay, ma'am, maybe then we can begin.
Okay.
Hi. Hi, everyone. Good evening and good afternoon to everyone who has joined. And thank you for everyone who's watching this session now live and later recorded. First of all, this BRSR regulation, which came in the last year in 2021 in August, and we saw that it is applicable for companies from this FI onwards. And we saw that a lot of companies have a lot of interest on this particular topic, and a lot of interns came with respect to learning a little bit more about BRSR. And we thought that since we have a bit of background on BRSR, since we are one of the few consultancies who have actually worked on BRSR, and of course we have Priya ma'am, who is one of the best expert in the country when it comes to reporting. We thought we can do a free webinar for 1 hour so that everybody can have some kind of exposure to BRSR, why it has come and what it is. So we'll be beginning shortly. The format would be that Priya ma'am would be speaking on the topic, and she would also be sharing a screen so that there is better engagement and you can understand what exactly is going through with the help of some pictures which we'll be showing on the screen. And she will be doing this, leveraging her knowledge on doing reporting for hard to abate sectors in particular, because those are the kind of companies which really struggle with going towards this net zero path, which the whole country or the whole world is moving towards. And another thing is that at the end of this particular session, there will be a quiz. And so the winners of the quiz will be posted in our LinkedIn page. And the quiz would be completely based on what is happening, so that at the end you would know if you have, if you are able to completely capture what we have gone through or not. And so make sure that you stay till the end. And now we will shortly begin with introduction to Pozhat and Priya ma'am and myself. It would not take much time, and then of course we will go forward to the main content. Hi. First of all, I guess many of you might already know, many of you might have worked with us in the past, but for those of you who haven't, we are a sustainability and climate change advisory. And for this particular purpose, we are leveraging our experience on reporting. So we'll be covering a little bit on that going forward. We want to ensure that the whole globe move towards sustainable development, or rather SDGs, and we want to ensure that the Indian companies have an edge over other companies when we do this particular exercise. And we think that the first step towards going towards sustainability is understanding where you stand right now, and that is done through a report such as BRSR. So let us begin by doing the same. Yes, ma'am, you can just. Yeah. Also, a little bit more about us. The thing is that we work with experts having, deep expertise in some of the niche areas, right? I mean, we are like very focused on certain areas, reporting being one of them. And we also ensure that we are able to help all our clients when it comes to other aspects of sustainability as well. So that overall, when you have to implement a sustainability roadmap, we'll be there for you from beginning till the end. That would be ensured. And of course, we keep on conducting knowledge sessions such as this, and also ensure that we give knowledge sometimes for free to all our clients, to ensure that there is good knowledge about sustainability in the market, and every industry is ready when the big change hits them. These are some of the things. And our experience is divided into four main buckets, starting from sustainability strategy and integration. That those would be things like stakeholder engagement and materiality assessment. Mostly companies would have to do this, and they begin by doing some kind of ESG disclosure and communications. uh, yeah so uh, okay, yeah. So I think now we'll skip on to Priya ma'am's introduction. So many of you might already know her. She is one of the biggest. Let me just, yeah, so that you can see her in the bigger picture. So she is one of the best experts in the country when it comes to reporting. She was also pioneer when IIRC was just launched. She launched one of the country's first integrated report, and her reports has also subsequently won so many awards. Also, recently one of our client won another award, but I don't think we can disclose it now since I guess it's too early. Anyway, so Priya ma'am, she's also a guest faculty at XLRI, and she has experience of conducting large stakeholder engagement process and conducting materiality assessment and doing all kinds of gap assessments for GRI, IARC, BRSR, and whatnot. So yeah, so that's a little bit about her. I think I'm pretty sure I'm missing a lot of things when it comes to her, but then again, I guess you will see for yourself how she is when she takes you through the presentation. And yeah, so about me a little bit that I have some industry background, just like Priya ma'am, but nothing major. I worked with industry for 3 years. It was a hard to abate sector company called Tata Steel, which I guess most of you might know. And I do have my fair share of experience when it comes to reporting, LCA, data management, etc. And here I'll be joining as a host to ensure that everything goes smoothly. So in case any of you are having any kind of difficulty uh, with respect to this webinar, please reach out to me. My mail ID and phone number is given below, or you can just message us through LinkedIn comment box. Just let us know if anything you want from us during this webinar, and I'll be happy to help you out. So yes, ma'am, you can go forward. Yeah, so before we begin, this is a very basic introduction about some of our work for hard to abate sector companies. So as you can see, we already prepared an annual report following BRSR for the internal use of a company in chemical sector called Oriental Aromatics. So Priya ma'am would be utilizing that experience when she takes you through this particular webinar. And we also have other experience in the last FI for GRI, IARC, BRR, BRSR, CDP, etc. And you can notice all the three companies given are in hard to abate sector. Yes, ma'am. So having said this, now I would request Priya ma'am to take it up, and uh, yeah, and then maybe we can start the presentation now.
Yes. Thank you, Sriram. Am I audible to everyone?
Yes, ma'am, you are audible to everyone.
Okay, okay. Thank you, thank you. And Sri Ram has set a wonderful context to this talk, when he mentioned net zero, because now climate action and climate change is the top of the agenda for all the governments around the world, and therefore also businesses, because businesses are a major contributor to climate change because of their dependency on natural resources, and also the way they impact the environment and also the society. So, because BRSR is a very technical subject, and when Sri Ram was talking to me that we should do something about, making people more aware. So, I was just wondering as to how to make this subject, which is rather dry. I mean, if you pick up I don't know if you can see me on the camera because I can only see my own screen. Can you see me on the camera?
Yes, ma'am, you are visible.
Okay, great. So if you pick up the NGRBCs and the NVGs and the BRSR format, it will prima facie look like a very dry form to be filled up and lots of tables and data and stuff like that. So, I thought I should make it a little more um, what do you say, interesting. So I thought I'll adopt a storytelling way in this webinar. So I want to talk about how the sustainability landscape globally has changed, and therefore how the concept of value creation by companies has also changed, and therefore the concept of reporting, the concept of accountability of the boards in the companies has changed. And then we'll come to BRSR, where I'll tell you a little bit about the structure of the BRSR, how it is important, and how we can go about implementing it in the detail. If you want us to kind of write the BRSR for you, you can always contact Sri Ram and we can do it through a consulting assignment. So, this is the story that I'm going to cover, how the mega trends have changed over the last few decades. The stakeholder theory and concept of value creation will be touched upon, how sustainability disclosures have evolved and what are their benefits to organizations, and the mandatory sustainability disclosure in India, which is now known as BRSR. So, just one second. I don't know, my slide is okay. So, let's talk about some of the sustainability mega trends. The biggest one being resource scarcity. So, what you are seeing on the screen is a measurement made by an NGO called the Global Footprint Network, who have coined a term called the Earth Overshoot Day, which is a day which marks the date when the humanity's demand for ecological resources and services uh, exceeds what the earth can regenerate in a year. Okay, by the way, if any of you want to ask a question, please unmute and ask, because I'm not sure. Sometimes I miss the chat box questions, but I would love to have an interactive session. So please don't hesitate in stopping me and asking questions. So, resource scarcity. This overshoot day actually marks the day when we've consumed the entire ration. It's like we bring the ration at home for 1 month. We bring the rice and dal for 1 month, but we finish it in 15 days only. So we have a deficit of 15 days, right? So the same concept with natural resources, you can see in 1970s, the ration, the earth's natural resources lasted for the whole year till December. But gradually you can see this green bar is coming down, and last year it has fallen short in August only. So there is almost a 7 months of deficit. And currently we are consuming 1.7 Earths. And if we continue our behavior, if we continue our unscrupulous consumption of natural resources, we will be consuming resources equal to 2 Earths by 2030 and 3 Earths by 2050. Now, water is again a very, very important natural resource, and this is a map that you are seeing. This is a world map. Can anybody share what is water stress?
Yes, ma'am. I think in this particular live interaction, I don't think people can use the audio, but
Oh,
definitely people can use the comments to respond to this
I'm
question.
not able to see the comments also. So, anyway, I will continue in that case. So, when
Okay.
you are withdrawing water, which is more than 20% of the available water, that area is supposed to be in water stress. Now, you can see the light orange and the dark orange areas, how it is changing between 1995 and 2025. And our own country, India, has already become water stressed in 2011. And water stress means the per capita availability of water is less than 1700 meter cube per year in that country. So India is water stressed since 2011, and just now over 2 billion people are living in countries experiencing high water stress. There are 31 countries who are facing chronic freshwater shortages. Now, all the participants, please pay attention to the slide also and to what I am speaking also, because we are going to have a quiz at the end, and Sriram will give a prize to people who get 100% in the quiz. So, I'm giving you a hint. There is a question in the quiz from this page. Okay. So in India, India is also one of the countries which is going to run short of water in the next 25 years. We can also see that on the map. It is estimated that by 2050, one in four of the world's children under 18 will be living in areas of extreme water stress. 700 million people are likely to be displaced because of water scarcity by 2030, and one third of the biggest groundwater systems are already in distress. Sriram, if there are any questions coming in the chat box, please let me know.
Sure, ma'am.
Yeah, air pollution is another very big problem, because we have seen recently there was, of course, a lockdown because of Corona. But I think in December, the Delhi schools had to again close down, not because of Corona, but because of air pollution. And this happens every year. And not only in India, globally, the World Health Organization data shows that 90% of the people are breathing air which is containing very dangerously high levels of pollutants. And almost 7 million people are killed every year because of air pollution. Plastic is again a very important megatrend. The United Nations is talking about it, our own government is talking about it, and it is likely that the way we are using single use plastic and the oceans and rivers are getting polluted by it, it is likely that by the middle of this century, the ocean will have more plastic than fish. And how derogatory it is for the marine life, for the birds, and also for human health is something that's another subject. Climate change, we'll see in the next slide that this is a slide which is showing some of the recent events which have got induced because of extreme climatic conditions like wildfires, flash floods, droughts, etc. So these events, which were very freakish, they would happen only once in a while, have become very, very frequent. If you watch news every day in the morning, when you switch on the TV, there's definitely one news about some wildfire somewhere, or some flash flood or drought somewhere. And this is an extract from the UN disaster report of the last 2 decades, where they say that 91% of the major disasters in these 2 decades, 1997 to 2018, were because of climate related events. 77% of global economic losses were due to climate related events again. And again, there is a rise of 151% in direct economic losses from climate related disaster. Uh, this 151% is from the previous report that United Nations had published, the previous 2 decade report. And the greatest economic losses have been experienced by US, China, Japan, and of course, India is also there. Puerto Rico is there. 1.3 million people lose their lives, and 4.4 billion people were injured, rendered homeless, or in need of some kind of assistance. The cost to global economy because of climate related events is of the scale of $500 billion, and cost to cost to the Indian economy per year is to the tune of $80 billion. Now, this is a little slow. I'm sorry about that. Yes. Then there is inequality in wealth. According to a survey by Oxfam, the 62 richest people in the world own the same wealth as the 3.6 billion poorest people. Now, sorry, yes. Human rights is again another trend which is gaining a lot of traction all over the world. This is again something you will see in the news, that recently I saw there was a protest in Canada because of some people's rights. There was last year it was in the news that one of the suppliers of Apple in Bangalore, they had to close down their factory because of some human rights. It was a daily wage issue. So people are becoming more and more vocal about their own rights, and it's a clear risk to business. Now, what you're seeing on the screen just now is the risk matrix. You can see the vertical axis is the impact of the risk, and the horizontal axis is the likelihood of the risks. And this is the risk heat map published by the World Economic Forum. And this is from their report of last year, 2021. The 2022 report is yet to come. What I want you to see is these green ones are the environmental risks. And if you see both in terms of impact and likelihood, the portion of green risks is the highest. And the highest, the most dangerous risk, or the most impactful risk, which also has the highest likelihood, is climate action failure. and the next one is biodiversity loss. And if you see this report, you can get it from Google. If you see the risk pattern of last 10 years, you will see the top global risks by likelihood and impact has more environmental risks compared to any other risks. Like economic risks have all gone down. You can see the blue ones, they are all down in the matrix because they have been mitigated. Businesses and governments have focused more on the economic risks. They've also focused on terrorism. They've focused on some social issues. They've focused on cyber security risks. But somewhere environmental aspects were left out, and therefore now these have become the top global risks. Now, this is interesting. You can see a picture on the screen, and the question is, what does all this have to do with business? Why are we talking about it? Traditionally, we have thought that it is the government or the NGOs or the municipalities who have to look after the environment and the people issues. Now, what you are seeing on the screen is, I wish I could have some interaction on this slide. I would love to talk. Now, what you're seeing on the screen is this is from a Chinese philosophy where the story of King Indra is there. Everyone knows in Hindu mythology there is the Lord of the Devas is Indra, and he has a net which is infinite, and each eye of the net is made of a crystal. And if you look carefully, each of this crystal is reflecting what is there in the surrounding. Can you notice that? This is like a mirror. So there is the sun, there is this trees, and you can see the sky and everything. So each eye of the net is reflecting something which is there in the surroundings. So I am using it as a metaphor to emphasize that businesses cannot be operating in an atmosphere where there are climatic disasters happening, where people are dissatisfied, where the governments are struggling with things. And we've also seen some data on how these natural disasters are affecting the economic performance of countries and the world. So needless to say, businesses are getting affected by it, and this is also like a net. The reflection is there. The only thing which businesses have done so far is that they have turned a blind eye to this reflection. Right? Any questions here? So, needless to say that all these global sustainability mega trends have impact on business in terms of new regulations being formed, changes in customer needs, emergence of new stakeholders, and market distortions and volatility, because people's preferences start changing. And these things pose different kind of risks and opportunities to businesses. And therefore, it is important for businesses to develop strategies which will address the social, environmental, and governance risks, and also capitalize on the opportunities that are coming out of these developments. Now, this is an example of some of the recent environmental and social disasters that corporates have faced due to inadequate adoption of ESG aspects in their business processes. What is ESG? ESG is an acronym for environmental, social, and governance. And when we are talking of sustainability disclosures, you will hear this more and more often. I don't want to go into each of these disasters in detail. It is something that has been well in the news, but I hope I have conveyed the message that I wanted to convey, that all these environmental and social issues, the different ecosystem in which the businesses are operating, they do have an impact on business performance and also business continuity on the long term. Now, what you are seeing on the screen is a traditional approach to business strategy. You can see this is the balanced scorecard approach that I have tried to show you, where there are just four perspectives which are financial, customer, internal process, and organizational capacity. And this is how the focus and the measurement systems for businesses have been developed. The environment is finding no place anywhere. The social issues, people issues, community issues are not finding any place in the business strategy. This is how traditionally businesses have worked. The value creation concept, this is a very interesting slide. It is one of my favorites, and if you follow my webinars, you will see this slide reappearing. I love to talk about it. That since the 18th century, when the first industrial revolution happened, it was the first time that human activity started causing pollution, anthropogenic emissions, which means anthropogenic means man-made. Now, again, till the about 20th century, the focus of the business was to maximize shareholder wealth. You might have read papers by Freeman, where shareholder primacy is the main thing. The business is supposed to create wealth for the shareholder. That is the only thing that it is supposed to do. And because of this kind of exponential economic growth, there was a lot of increase in emissions, usage of plastic, fertilizers, child labor increased, and the expectation was that only the governments and NGOs were expected to regulate the impacts. Now, it was only in the late 20th century that investors in business started realizing that unless and until they focus on the intangible assets of business. Till now we have not given any value to the natural resources or to the people's skill, their rights, their knowledge, and their contribution to the business. So they are known as intangible assets or intangible value drivers of a business. So they realize that unless and until they start managing and improving these aspects of the business will not be sustainable on a long term. The financial aspects will not manifest unless and until the intangibles are getting managed. And therefore, the board's accountability was changed, that the board, which is the highest governance system of a company, is not only supposed to discharge the fiduciary duties, but it is also responsible for the ESG aspects of the business, environmental, social, and governance business. And therefore, the emergence of GRI happened, which was the first global reporting standard. And this is how the concept of corporate responsibility evolved. The current definition of sustainability is all about integration. It is not about doing philanthropy. It is about integrating the dependencies and the impacts on natural resources as well as the community and your own people into your own strategies and coming up with an ESG strategy. And the definition of sustainability from the United Nations, which was coined in 1987, is development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of the future generations to meet their own needs. And here, actually, I wanted to put a slide on this. When I saw our Prime Minister's message on the Ngrbcs, this is available on Google, you can read it. It is such a beautiful message where Honorable Prime Minister has talked about trusteeship. I'll just read the first few lines of that. Our motto, Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, has been the cornerstone for pursuing welfare for all by ensuring that the benefits of good governance reach everyone. Business has primarily been seen as wealth creators for their shareholders, but it has the potential to go beyond that and induce inclusive socio-economic transformation. The Gandhian philosophy of trusteeship captures the business responsibility towards society. So I wanted to put a slide on this, but I thought it might become boring. But I could not help reading out that how lovely this message is from our Prime Minister, and it is gelling so well with the the changing concept of corporate responsibility for businesses. I want to touch a little bit upon who is a stakeholder. So like Sri Ram already introduced, that we do a lot of stakeholder engagement and materiality analysis. And trust me, the identification of stakeholders for a business is still having a lot of blind spots. So now, who is a stakeholder? The definition is individuals or groups or organizations that affect or could be affected by an organization's activities, products, and services, or its associated performance. Are they important? Yes, they are extremely important because they can positively or negatively impact corporate performance. They can impact your image, and we have seen that timeline of disasters that has happened. And stakeholders give a company a license to operate, both social and regulatory. And therefore, the basic objective of a firm's existence is to create value for all stakeholders. And we have seen now that the environment, the community, the employees are also key stakeholders of a organization. Now, who are the key stakeholders in the company? So I think some color is not coming properly. So earlier there were only investors, governments, and consumers who were kind of considered as stakeholders for a company. But now we have realized over a period of time and through a lot of disasters that taking care of the community, your supply chain, the media, NGOs play a lot of role in how your company is getting projected. Your employees, your peers, and collective platforms play a role in value creation. So it was through this kind of a realization over a period of time that in 2015 two major events took place. One was the adoption of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, and the other was the signing of the Paris Agreement, which was in COP21 to limit the global warming to well below 2 degrees centigrade. So these were the two mega events which reflect this multi-stakeholder expectations from businesses, and this has completely changed the rules of the game. And as a result of this, now the regulations are getting more and more tight, both in India and across globally. We can see a lot of regulations that have evolved, including the one which we are going to talk about, that BRSR has been mandated for top 1000 companies from FY23. And also SEBI is now encouraging the integrated reporting from August 2021. um, there is a lot of attention on climate change in the Western world. Last year, sometime in the European Union, TCFD, the Task Force for Climate Related Financial Disclosures, has become mandatory for companies to disclose. So, similarly, these things can happen in India also. The Slavery Act, the science based targets for aligning your carbon emission goals with the Paris Agreement, and various carbon pricing instruments could come into play. So these are the likely regulations that are going to affect. The latest development is that our Prime Minister has committed in the Glasgow Climate Summit, which happened in September last year, that our country must achieve net zero by 2070. Now, please pay attention that this is a very, very important development, and companies need to start working towards their climate action program and at the same time disclose it, that they have an understanding of their climate related risks, opportunities, and they have plans to mitigate it. They have an integrated strategy to address these issues so that you are mitigated from the risks that are going to come in the future in the form of more and more strict regulations. Because once the Prime Minister has committed in a global forum, these five commitments are likely to come in the form of regulations. And like Sri Ram said, that it is the hard to abate sectors, the ones who are very polluting, the ones who use a lot of fossil fuel, are the ones who are going to be majorly impacted. So, we have been talking about ESG, which is also known as the triple bottom line, which integrates the economic, social. Economic is also same as governance. So environmental, social, and economic, or ESG. And this is the kind of integrated measurement or integrated strategy that has to now come into place in all the businesses. They need to be purpose driven with inclusion of all stakeholders, and how they are contributing to sustainable development is something that needs to be measured and disclosed. And also, businesses need to take care of the risks and opportunities that arise from environmental, social, and governance issues. So, now we are coming to disclosures. What is a disclosure? It is an organization's practice of reporting to all stakeholders on their economic, environmental, and social impact. It also presents the organization's values and governance model, and demonstrates the link between its strategy and its commitment to sustainable development. So, this is exactly gelling with the definition of sustainable development that we started with. And now you have to disclose as to how your strategy is addressing the complete sustainable development or the ESG issues. Trends in reporting, it started with financial reporting when people became shareholders in companies, so it was important for companies to be transparent about their financial performance. And therefore financial reporting started, and it became mature and very transparent across the globe. Environmental and social reporting started in the 1970s in the West, followed by some maturity happening only in the 1990s. And we just discussed that GRI was the first global reporting initiative that started in 1990s. Now, what are the benefits of sustainability reporting? Of course, you get investor confidence, therefore, a lot of financial leverage, increased access to capital. And now you're seeing that I'm sure people who are in businesses would agree that now investors are completely refusing to invest in businesses that that are polluting or they have a negative impact on people. Sorry, could you say that again? And reduced risks, not just financial but also ESG risks, more access to market, new markets, increased market share. Talent, now the young ones, especially the millennials, want to work in companies that are more and more responsible. You have a strong social license to operate if you are taking action on ESG issues and you are communicating it to the right set of stakeholders. You demonstrate your leadership, and your own overall performance becomes very, very robust and risk free. Sometimes the slide is getting stuck. So, just quickly touching upon what are some of the financial reporting frameworks. Of course, the first one being the GRI, then there is CDP. It was erstwhile known as Carbon Disclosure Project, but now it is only CDP. There is the ISO 26000 framework, the IR, the International Integrated Reporting Framework, Sustainability Accounting Standards Board, and the Task Force for Climate Related Financial Disclosures, which is also known as the TCFD, and also SDGs. It is not mentioned in this slide, but Sustainable Development Goals are also a framework which you can use to disclose your ESG performance. Now, coming to India, in India, the first regulatory nudge began in 2009 when the NVGs, the National Voluntary Guidelines, were coined, and Companies Act in 2013 made it mandatory for companies to follow CSR and to disclose non-financial performance. The SEBI BRR, the BRR is the Business Responsibility Report, became mandatory in India in the year 2012. Please note these dates properly. Now, this is a timeline of how the ESG reporting in India has developed. So, in 2011, the NVGs, the National Voluntary Guidelines, were coined, and they were mandated for the listed companies. The top 100 listed companies were asked to disclose their performance on NVGs in the year 2012. In 2015, SEBI extended this reporting to the top 500 listed companies. And now the circular which has come last year, SEBI has mandated BRR reporting to the top 1000 listed companies. So you can see the government is now very, very serious upon about the accountability of companies. Now, the NVGs, the National Voluntary Guidelines, were also revised. We talked about the two major developments, the SDGs and the Paris Agreement, which happened, and therefore the Indian framework for non-financial reporting had to be revised, and therefore the NVGs became the Ngrbcs, which is the National Guidelines on Responsible Business Conduct. And the key drivers for this revision were the adoption of the UN guiding principles, or the UNGP, for business and human rights, which propagate, protect, respect, and remedy for human rights. The Sustainable Development Goals and Paris Agreement we have talked about. The core conventions 138 and 182 on child labor by the ILO, which happened in 2017, which specifies the minimum age of child labor and also the worst form of child labor. The annual business responsibility report, there was a study conducted by MCA, and the issue which came up was that the completeness and the clarity in the reporting with respect to NVGs was very, very vague by the company. So that was also a driver. And of course, the Companies Act 2013, where CSR became a mandatory requirement. So we mentioned that the MCA conducted a study on some sample disclosures on the BRR, and they found the absence of clarity, completeness, and accuracy in their reporting. And therefore, the reporting framework itself was revised, and from BRR, it came to be known as BRSR, or Business Responsibility and Sustainability Report, which has become a mandatory reporting for the top 1000 listed companies from FY22 to 23. But if you see the circular, if you read the circular in detail, you will realize that the MCA encourages the companies, including the MSMEs, to adopt the BRSR on a voluntary basis since the current year, the FY21-22, and also prepare themselves for future regulations. So it is most likely that this regulation on BRSR will also extend to companies beyond the top 1000 and will also eventually include the MSMEs. So the key differences between BRR and BRSR is there is a focus on stakeholder engagement and identification of material issues. I'm assuming everyone will know what are material issues. They are the most relevant environmental, social, and governance issues for a business. A highly data driven report. There is a lot of focus on data now. Earlier, it was more like a, businesses could get away by writing some qualitative statements, but now you have to produce data on your ESG performance, and the number of pages has also increased, and the reporting has to be on the digital portal, the MCA 21, where you file your other SEBI filings. The structure of the BRSR is has two versions. One is a comprehensive format, and then there is a light version. The comprehensive version is for companies which have been reporting in BRSR, sorry, in BRR, so they have a lot of data already. And the government has introduced a light format for the newer companies who are new to these measurements. And the light format, the only difference is that the number of questions are lesser and they are more simpler to answer, but in general the structure of both the version is very similar. The BRSR has three sections. The section A, which is general disclosures, it contains the basic information about the company. It is more like an introduction to your company. The section B, which is about the management and process, it discloses information concerning your leadership, governance, your stakeholder engagement, and also your policies which are relating to the NGRBC's principles, which we are going to look at very soon. The section C is principle wise performance has to be reported along with data. And there are two categories of reporting here. One is the essential category, where all the companies have to mandatorily report. There is a leadership set of indicators which is voluntary for companies, which they can report to assess their maturity in the sustainability or the ESG measurements. Now let's talk about the principles. There are 9 principles in the NGRBC. Each principle has a statement. If you look at the structure, there is a statement, there is a brief description, and there are core elements. So, the brief description narrates the essential aspects of the principle and its intent for the business. And the core elements are the indicators which help to operationalize that principle for an organization. All these 9 principles are interdependent, interrelated, and non divisible, and the businesses are urged to address them holistically, which means that if you're reporting to the BRSR, you have to address all the 9 principles. You cannot say that a certain principle is not applicable to you. Now, all the businesses who are operating or investing in India are expected to disclose their performance aligned with the NGRBCs or the BRSR format, including foreign MNCs, irrespective of their ownership, size, structure, sector, or location. Now, these are the 9 principles that we have talked about. I'm not touching the core elements in this session, otherwise, it will become very heavy. That is something that we will deal with when we do a consulting assignment with you. So, the first principle is about ethical governance. Businesses should conduct and govern themselves with integrity and in a manner that is ethical, transparent, and accountable. I'm only reading the statement of the principles. Second principle is businesses should provide goods and services in a manner that is sustainable and safe. Third, businesses should respect and promote the well being of all employees, including those in their value chains. Fourth, businesses should respect the interests of and be responsive to all its stakeholders. Fifth, businesses should respect and promote human rights. Sixth, businesses should respect and make efforts to protect and restore the environment. Seventh is businesses, when engaging in influencing public and regulatory policies, should do so in a manner that is responsible and transparent. Eighth, businesses should promote inclusive growth and equitable development. And ninth, businesses should engage with and provide value to their consumers in a responsible manner. So you can see that in all these 9 principles, all the environmental, social, and governance aspects have been integrated. The governance aspects are right in the first principle, which is about integrity, ethics, transparency, and accountability. Now, how do you get started on BRSR? So, basically, like I said, all the 9 principles have to be adopted. Businesses don't have a choice on that. But there are core elements which are associated with each of the principles. So, you can prioritize the core elements as to which one is more relevant to your business and which one is less relevant. And you can map these core elements with your vision, mission, values, your business success factors, your material issues, and the laws, regulations, and the practices of the region that you operate in. After this, you review and develop policies, processes, and guidelines vis-a-vis the prioritized core elements. Develop new policies where there are gaps in consultation with stakeholders. This is very, very important. And you will find that there is a pointed question in the BRSR whether your policies have been developed in consultation with your stakeholders. So that is why I have touched upon these fundamentals of stakeholders engagement right at the start of this webinar. And get your policies endorsed by the governance structure, which is your board, typically your board. Determine the ambition. So you have to set a performance level for each of the prioritized core element. Here in the BRSR, the two levels which are suggested are the essential and leadership, which we have talked about already. Now you set targets. So you have to select indicators. We saw some of the indicators in that ESG map. So for each of the core elements, you have to select as to how you will measure your progress against those core elements, and set your targets, whether you want to just be at the compliance level or whether you want to be an industry leader or a sector leader, and work accordingly. uh, Benefits of integrating the RBCs. So each of the principles, 9 principles, has been mapped against the typical business success factor for each business. Like revenue growth and market access, cost savings and productivity, access to capital, risk management or license to operate, human capital, brand value and reputation. So you can see from this matrix, the first column is the principles and the rows are the business success factors, that each of the principle has an impact on some or the other of the business success factors here. You can do a self assessment of your performance against the NGRBCs. This is a tool which has been suggested by the NGRBC guidelines, where it requests you to assess your progress against completeness or ambition. But considering that BRSR is very new, the focus just now is on assessment of completeness with respect to the 9 principles. And this is a suggestive guideline given by the NGRBC document, where it says that you take a score of 200. And for section B, there are 18 questions in section B. And if all of them are complete, then you give yourself a score of 20. And in section C, there are 1 to 9 principles, which is principle wise disclosure. So if you have completed each of these 9 disclosures, so 20 marks each, so that is a total of 180. So 180 plus 20, 200 marks. And if you get above 180, you have a high compliance to NGRBCs, and similarly medium, low and others. So if you have answered questions 1, 5, 7, 8 and 10 of the others, then you score yourself as medium, and so on and so forth. So you can do a self assessment, and this is an example of how these principles are mapped against the sustainable development goals. So when you follow the NGRBCs, you are actually aligned to the big global picture of sustainable development. And these are the Indian laws which are mapped against the NGRBCs. I will not go into the details, but what I'm trying to say is, in these 2 slides, you can see that if you are following the NGRBCs, even at a compliance level, you are more or less following the laws of the land. So thank you very much. This is the end of my presentation. And now I would request Sri Ram, if there are any questions, I would love to take them, or to start the quiz.
Yes. So if any of you have any questions, you can enter that in the comment section. We'll just wait for like few seconds before we go into the quiz time. And in case you are having any uh, c- questions, please do let us know through the comments, and we will just enter the quiz in some time. And I think, ma'am, since there is like a 10-second delay between actual video and the other thing, I think we should wait for like few seconds.
Now I can see the chat box. There are no questions.
Yes.
But is that looks like bad performance on my part? Oh, wonderful details. Somebody has sent a message saying wonderful details. Oh, thank you, Mr. Srinivas. I'm glad you liked it. Do you have any questions?
Okay. So, ma'am, somebody has asked, Saurabh Jory, please suggest whether this compliance may be extended to non-listing companies as well.
Yes, Saurabh, a very good question this is. And yes, I also mentioned it during my talk that if you read the MCA circular, the SEBI circular, the link for which was there in the presentation, Sriram, can you please post the link to the SEBI circular? If you read that circular line by line, you will see that the ministry is telling you to get prepared to disclose. And just now it is for top 1,000 listed companies. And between 2012 and 2020, it has extended from 50 to 1,000 companies. So I am pretty sure that in the next 5 or 6 years, considering the kind of developments that have happened globally and also our government's commitment to sustainable development, this is likely to extend to non listed companies as well as MSMEs. So it is advisable to for everyone to start following the BRSR format now. The light version is also an indicator. You know, you have to pick up these hints. The government has given you a light version for newer companies and non-listed companies who are not so used to reporting. And you will
Okay,
be
so
better off if you start working, if you start disclosing before the regulation, you will be better off. Sorry, Sriram, you were saying something.
oh, not ma'am. I'm just saying that I do have the link, but I'm not able to give it to comment. I have asked one of my colleague to send it in the group chat,
Oh,
and
okay.
then I guess from the chat, you guys can access it.
Meera ma'am is saying that very brief and good presentation. Thank you, Meera ma'am. I'm so delighted that you liked it. Quite informative. Sheila ji. Thank you, Sheila. Saurabh is saying thanks. Any other
Okay.
question?
So what we can do is, meanwhile, maybe we can do the quiz and then come back, if that's okay with you, ma'am.
Yes. Perfect.
Okay. Okay. So at the end, okay, I'll just once again show it. So this quiz we'll be conducting online. So you just have to go to this link, slido.com, slido.com, and enter 616006 as the code. So once you have done that, you will be able to access the quiz. But before that, ma'am, just one thing. I saw that just now we got uh, two more comments. One is from Neeraj Dalal. He has asked that, Madam, as per your experience, how companies are serious about BRSR report? And as we know, there are many policies and companies pays to politicians and avoid these.
Okay. So, yes, Mr. Dalal, seriousness has now begun to be visible because it's a regulation. So, the top 1,000 companies don't have a choice but to do it. But, the awareness, the love with which you should disclose this thing is somehow missing. This is my experience. And that is why I went through the story of value creation, because the kind of love that we have for our own CV, if we make our own LinkedIn profile, for example, we do it with a lot of love. We put a nice picture and we put all our achievements and everything. The same kind of attitude has to come for sustainability reporting and BRSR reporting. So just now, you're right, it is more like a pressure. People are not adopting it as a part of business. It is more like an add-on. And we would love to see the day when it becomes a natural process of reporting for companies, just the way people report their profit and loss statements. We would love to see that kind of data management. Even it's not just the reporting, it's also the data management and the measurement systems within the companies that is at a very, very novice stage. So that is why we are trying to conduct these webinars where people start becoming more and more aware about the importance of these principles and how they need to align if they want to be in business for a long time. Do I answer your question?
Yeah, so the question has come in Slido, and I guess I mean there are quite few participants there, and I would just request you to just wait for like 2 more minutes, because there are some questions. After that, we'll just immediately go to the quiz. So, ma'am, another question is that can you please share if there are any such guidelines for SME startup? But I think you already answered that question.
There
Another
are
thing,
specific guidelines for SMEs. It is there as an annexure to the NGRBCs. You can download it from the net, or you can just send an email to us. We'll send you the thing by email.
yes, yes. So I have given my email address as a scroll here, and also one of our colleague has entered the link to that particular notification, which you can find in the comment section. So there also you can access. Another question is that by JP, what are good practices in grievance redressal systems for each NGRBC principle? Any good examples in India of companies who have established such systems?
Yes, yes. Thank you, JP. Very, very apt question. And actually, in my consulting experience, we deal with questions as to why we should have a grievance redressal system at all. But that is one way of stakeholder engagement. So, a good practice is to typically have a post called, either an ethics counselor or an ethics department in your company, which is widely publicized, and it should be accessible to all the employees, to your suppliers, to the community. So whoever wants to post a grievance or they see some unethical practice happening about the company, they can report it there. At the same time, with this listening post in place, they should also have some kind of a protection mechanism, wherein if an employee reports some kind of an unethical practice, he should not get some kind of a punitive action. So these are some of the good practices, and yes, some good companies who are doing this is, of course, one is Tata Steel. Both Sri Ram and I are ex-employees, so if you pick up the sustainability report of Tata Steel, you will find a full chapter on governance and ethics, and there the whole mechanism is mentioned. You can read through, and if you want more help, you can always approach us.
Okay, so I guess maybe rest of the questions we can come back if that's okay with you, ma'am, and we can go
Yeah,
to the
yeah,
quiz.
sure.
Okay, so
Yes.
I will request everybody to join the quiz now. We can already see there are quite a few participants, and we'll just wait for 5 seconds. In case anybody is facing any kind of issue for joining this, let me know. Only thing you need to do is you have to go to slido.com, slido.com, and then you will see an option to enter your code. So there you have to enter 616006, and then you would definitely be able to come to the quiz, and we will start the quiz in exactly 15 seconds. The quiz has started, and you have I guess 16 more seconds to answer the first one. Okay, yeah, I can already see the answers coming in.
All the best. I hope Sri Ram has a long list of people who get 100 marks. This is not only your quiz, it's also my quiz. Effectiveness of my talk.
Okay, so we can see the leaderboard now, and we are going to the next question, and which has 20 seconds, by the way. So each question would have 20 seconds. As per WEF, the top two global environment risks are climate action failure and biodiversity loss, human environment damage and biodiversity loss, climate action failure and natural resource crisis. Okay, and we are going to the next one. The correct answer is climate action failure and biodiversity loss, and pretty a lot of people have got it correct. All right, so the next question. A sustainability disclosure is an organization's practice of reporting environmental and social impacts, link between its strategy and commitment to sustainable development, economic impacts, all of the above. All right.
Very good.
Seems like most participants got it correct. Okay, so we are going to the next question. I hope all of you are ready. The first global standard for sustainability reporting is BRSR, SASB, GRI, TCFD. Okay, so probably among this, not probably, among this, BRSR is the latest one, and the correct answer is GRI. Right. So next question. Yeah, BRSR is applicable to all types of businesses operating or investing in India. Yes.
Very good.
Yeah. So the correct answer is true. It is applicable for all the companies. While it might not be mandatory, it's applicable to all the companies. All right. So the next question: SEBI mandated non-financial reporting in India. Non-financial reporting in India in which year? 2011, 2009, 2012. By the way, I saw in the comments one of what Meera has asked for the contact. By the way, it's scrolling on the screen. It is Sriram at Pozhat and 9400554731. Yeah, so the correct answer to this particular question was 2012, and around half people have got it correct. And yeah, so Alok is, Alok, Gautam, and Kripanshi are leading now, Rishabh. So the next question: how many principal does NGRBCs have? Is it 12, 9, 15, or 10? Okay, so the correct answer is 9, and most people have got it correct. Okay. So we'll just move on to the next question. How many formats for a disclosure does BRSR have? And the options are 1, 3, 5, and 2. Okay, so I guess around 1/3 of the people have got it correct. The correct answer is 2. There is a light and there is a full version.
Comprehensive and light.
Yeah. Okay, so now there are just 2 more questions left. We'll move on to the next one. Okay, so the 9th question is all the NGRBC principles are required to be addressed holistically by businesses, whether it is true or false. Okay, so 3 out of 4 people have got it correct. And the right answer is that it is true. It is to be addressed holistically. And now Kribanshi is leading with 8 out of 9 points, and there are three people behind with 7 out of 9 points. So now we'll move on to our final question, which is the self-assessment against NGRBC adoption at this time focuses more on. Okay, yeah. So the correct answer is that it's completeness, and very few people have got it correct. We'll look at
We had it
leaderboard.
in red on the slide. And if you remember, we mentioned that because of the early adoption, the government is focusing more on completeness rather than ambition.
Yeah, thanks to everybody who have attended this particular quiz, and Kripanshi has won this 8 out of 10 point. Now, the only difficulty is finding Kripanshi in LinkedIn. So, if you can comment on this box, it would be, make things much easier for us. So, thanks to Kripanshi, and the close follow-ups are JP, Manvi, Gautam Yadav, and Alok Suyal with 7 points each. And yeah, I mean, quite a few people have done well, by the way.
Very good.
So congrats to Kripanshi. And now, ma'am, I think there is just one question, which is that yeah. So once the BRSR compliance is done by an organization, whether any funding or sustainable projects will be given by government.
Yes, Blessy, this is this is a question that I encounter many times because people say कि क्या फायदा होगा मेरे को करने से, whether it is BRSR or any other disclosure, they think that will my customers pay me more or will the government give me a subsidy? So there is absolutely no guarantee. But yes, there is a trend in investors that they want to invest more in clean technologies, low pollution, low emission technologies. So, there are funds which are available, international funds, by the way. So you can access those if you want to pilot a technology like that. But yes, once the BRSR compliance is done, I cannot say whether any funding will be done by the government. There is no promise in the NGRBC or the ministry circular, but if you don't do it, there are a lot of risks that you may have to face in the future.
Okay. So I guess that's all for today. And just one more thing, I would also request JP, Manvi, Gautam Yadav, and Alok Suyal in Slido, who have become, who have got the second prize, to just comment here, so that we can also mention you guys aside from Kripanshi. And Kripanshi, thank you so much for messaging in the comments. We really appreciate that. So yeah, once again, JP, Manvi, Gautam Yadav, and Alok Suyal, maybe you can please comment here. And yeah, so I guess we had a wonderful session. And ma'am, thank you so much for this particular session on BRSR. And I am
Thank
pretty
you for the
sure
opportunity.
and I am pretty sure that this would have been helpful to many of the companies. And in case any of you have any additional questions or would like to know anything additional, please reach out to us. My mail ID and my phone number is given. You can reach out to me at any time. If I'm sleeping, I'll respond to it at a later time. Please do reach out, and let us know in what way we can help. So once again, thank you for all the participants who have joined us live and later who will be watching the recorded session. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much to everyone for the active participation and for all the kind words that you have said. And I hope you enjoyed the quiz. The only intention was to make it more and more interesting. Otherwise, it would have been a very dry session if we just talked about the 9 principles and the elements and things like that. So, thank you so much.
Okay, so thank you, Aaron. We'll be ending the broadcast in 5 seconds. Thank you.